Welcome to the Awareness Space, the mental and emotional health podcast, exploring human experience. I'm Owen Morgan, a wellbeing advocate, former massage therapist and wellness author. I've interviewed hundreds of people over the last 4 years on all things health and wellness. After multiple traumas across my lifetime and the effects that they have had, I fell in love with what it is to be a human being. As I moved along my healing journey, I found myself becoming more self-aware of my own experiences, triggers, and survival responses. This changed my life for the better. This podcast explores what self-awareness is and how we can use it to heal, transform, and live a life more fully. With expert guests, health advocates, and people with stories, we dive into what it is to be human. Join our ever-growing community every Sunday and Wednesday evening for all things health, wellness, and transformative awareness. We also have panel show podcast episodes every 4 weeks where our awareness space listeners and community can ask questions to my guests. All this alongside our wellbeing videos on YouTube and my Awareness 5 Way of Life techniques. You can find the podcast on YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Visit us at www.theawarenesspace.com. Right, it's time for today's show. Welcome to the Awareness Space podcast, everyone. As always, I will start with my intention for the episode and podcast as a whole. When we become aware of what's going on for us in this moment and doing so with compassion, safety, and non-judgment, we can begin to heal. But guess what? Awareness isn't enough. Daily practices, well-being support from another, and resources to grow within are very much needed. That's what I seek out to discover via this podcast. All we have is this moment, and how can we seek to know how best to engage with it for a sense of peace within? Now, today I'm super excited because I have a very good friend coming on who's also been my coach as well. And we've done, I can't even count how many episodes we've done together on Manco Wellbeing. So I'm so excited to do a one-to-one after a couple of years since we've done a one-to-one. I'm sat down with the amazing Stephen Truelove. Stephen runs his business, Love Life, Love You, and he is a mindset coach and emotion-focused therapist. His mission is to assist people to be the best they can, regardless of their circumstances. That's probably the shortest intro we've ever had for Steve, and there it is. Welcome, Steve, my friend. How are you? I'm so excited to have you on this new refresh brand of my podcast.
I'm looking forward to being a part of it, mate. It's nice to be back and talking with you again. It was great to catch up and see what's going on in life, even though it's strange at the moment. You know, it's still tough for people out there. Let's see where this takes us.
Definitely. And I know we both said off recording, like, what else could we talk about? We've probably done an equivalent of 30 hours worth of conversation. So I am excited to see what we'll get into next. But I'm very aware that a lot of the listeners right now are new to what we're doing. So I'm really excited for them to hear about you and what your work and everything for the first time. So thank you, everybody, for listening. So what I tend to do before we get into question one, which is about self-awareness, I would just like to know how it's been for you in 2020. I know we're all fully aware of how tough this year has been with COVID and everything else going on. But for you personally, I know you're in Wales, in the UK. So how has this been for you, mate?
It's been enjoyable and it's been tough. You know, different things have happened, and I know everybody's experienced all different things through this. But for me personally, it helped me to grow at one stage because most of my work was done in an office environment or one-to-one, face-to-face. But then obviously COVID came in, and I realized that, you know, I could do things online, but I probably hadn't tried before. People often ask me, can we do an online session? I thought, well, what's the point? I've got an office, I'm paying for it, you know, come along. But it's helped me to reach out further because I'm working with people far and wide now. And actually a lot of the things I do seem to work better for some people online than they did in an office environment. Maybe it's because they're more relaxed about it. I don't know. 2020 has helped me to grow. And again, I've had my ups and downs like everybody else. I had the loss of my little dog, who you don't realize how much of a companion they can be. So that happened about a month and a half ago. That took me back a little bit and knocked me backwards, but we're back out of it now and moving on again. But I am finding that more people are reaching out, especially as we go into different waves. So fingers crossed that these vaccines are going to be the answer and get people out back to normal living, whatever that's going to be. And we can all start to move on from what most people might want to forget, the year of 2020.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously much love to you for lots of your dog as well, because they become very, well, they're best friends essentially, aren't they? And unconditional.
Oh,
Unconditional
yeah.
too. I love the unconditional love that you can have with an animal more so than human. So it's very beautiful for that. But it's also a testament to remember that even though through this year that we had other stuff has happened too, we all have our personal journeys, our personal battles and personal triumphs in amongst such a thing as a pandemic. So there's that too. And I don't even know what the world will look like after this, how different it will be. I think there's been a lot of ruptures between, our ability to feel safe around others and touch. Think about how many of us haven't touched many people for like a year. It's not natural. It's totally against our primal instinct. So it'd be interesting to see how we get on reconnecting again and touching again and all that kind of stuff. Walking down the street and not having to walk into the road to avoid somebody. I'm looking forward to that. It's not natural.
And as time has gone on, I've had more people closer, if you like. It was in the distance before, but I've got relatives who've come down with COVID. I've lost loved ones, so it's become an experience of that. When initially was hearing about it afar. So my heart goes out to everybody who's gone through really tough times. I look at mine as being probably a little bit of an easier journey through 2020 than many others have had to sort of cope with, if you like.
Yeah, I think the closer it gets to home, the more we kind of start to take stock and respect it more. I think it's easy to see it from afar and go, well, that's okay, I'm just cracking on as normal. But actually you have to remember that at any point it could take hold in the area that you're in. And I have a lot of family in Wales, obviously. I have a very, very particularly Welsh name. So I'm sure people have figured out already that my family's over there. And at least 3 of them have had it so far very badly, but they've come out the other side. So grateful for that. So,
Yeah.
I don't know, I may get it before the vaccine gets to me. So we'll have to see what unfolds, and it will be what it will be. We just have to sit with the mystery of it all and see what happens, because we can't control life at the best of times, especially not this one. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm hoping as this podcast grows, I'm gonna have to stop asking these questions and it will just be it'll be a memory. Do you remember that, Chris?
Well, it takes us a little bit back into sad times, doesn't it? When we all want to start looking forward to happier times.
Yeah.
We can't change what's gone on, but we can certainly look forward from now on.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I'll ask everybody the same question. I've just been loving every second of getting the answers on this one. I'm really intrigued to see what you're going to say. We're such good friends. I kind of have a rough idea what you're going to say, but let's go for it. So for you, Steve, what does self-awareness mean to you? And how do you keep a sense of present moment awareness in your life? So what does it mean to you, and how do you integrate it into your day-to-day?
Well, for me, self-awareness is how I grow, because the more I'm aware of my internal representation, I suppose is the word, or my state and my environmental cues. So whatever's going outside, how am I reacting to these things? And a lot of things, what I've learned about myself was the automatic pilot, where we've got conditioning that we've had is running in the background, and unless we are self-aware of the way we are being around certain situations or reacting to something that's going on for us, then we don't have the ability to change. Self-awareness is the key thing, that I now know what this feeling is about. I'm listening to my body. I'm watching what I'm aware of what I'm thinking. Whereas before I was an overthinker. My mind was out there over-analyzing everything. So it's been quite a journey, actually, for 20 odd years. So since I began, it was around 34 when I broke down, thinking, what's this? I didn't know what this was. This crying coming from this feeling I had inside of me was something I wasn't recognizing. Now, once I started recognizing the first one, I went on my journey. And that was the catalyst of the change in my life. Illnesses, different things that were going on that I suppose in my world I was just accepting. It was part of me, and it's normal for it to be that way, but it wasn't. I often use the analogy of the sat nav. People is getting on top of you. When you jump in the car and you go to the other end of the country on your own, book into an hotel, spend a few days by yourself, and you start sorting yourself out a little bit, and things are pretty cool, and you come back. And then you get back into life again. And a few years down the line, everything's becoming overwhelming again. So you think, I know, I'll go off to that hotel and have a bit of time by myself. So you jump in the car, you set the sat nav to the hotel, and you're driving along, and it says 500 yards, turn left. But there isn't a left. In 600 yards, turn right, and there's no right. Because over them few years, road works have been done, the routes have been changed, different roads have been closed off. And we haven't updated the sat nav. So it's still trying to take us down the old road. And that's really how I see us as human beings, is we've got these maps that we've created since the day we're born, really. And unless we update them, then a part of us wants to keep taking us down the old roads. And that's really what self-awareness is about, is being aware that you are being a certain way in a typical situation. Usually other people can see it, but what I call is your blind spot. You're not seeing it for yourself until you really become self-aware. And it's like pulling the little gremlin out from behind the stone. Say, oh, okay, now I can see what's going on. And that gives me the ability to change. And when I change, my life, and I've got a choice. My choice is to stay the same or to do it better. But I know the unconscious mind will always take the better choice, or what we've got on offer. So if your choices are limited, then you'll always take the best of the limited choices. So if you expand your choices of the way you want to be, the way you want to be perceived in the world, whatever you want to call it, you have the ability to change whatever you want to change in your world. Just be aware and change the map, and then you get better results.
Thank you. I love that analogy with the sat nav and the map and stuff. That's exactly how my brain likes to absorb information. So thank you. It's a really wonderful way to get a sense of what this looks like for people who haven't had an opportunity to become self-aware in the way they like to. I think that sat nav map thing is a really good thing. And I think what came up for me, as you said, that was talking about witnessing. So you start to witness what's going on in any given moment to you, your triggers, your glimmers, the things that affect you. But I'm sure what we'll get into a little bit later, which I'm really fascinated by, is like our programming, old programming that's still within us, that some of it's unconscious, subconscious levels, and it's just playing out and we're not seeing it. So it's having the ability to recognize this present moment reaction, but also becoming aware of our programming, I guess, how we tend to think, or the way we interact could be rooted in childhood stuff that's programmed out, and we need to start to reprogram, brain.
But it's great, I've been through it myself, and that's what I know. When I was being coached, I remember my coach saying to me one day, like, do you realize how you're being? And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't get it. But I couldn't see it, but it was coming up in my mannerism, if you like, in the way I was being. But the moment it came into view, again, I broke down. It was like, it was upsetting because I didn't like that, but I couldn't see it either. It wasn't I was doing anybody any harm, but it wasn't coming over in a nice way from me. And I often see this when people get sent to me, actually, and say, well, I don't know why I'm here, but somebody sent me. I said, okay, what is it that they are seeing that you can't see? So this is where we need the support, is because very often we are not seeing it for ourselves, and with the right type of work, it can allow the person to see what they haven't been seeing, and that allows them to change because it brings it into self-awareness.
Yeah, thank you. I kind of like seeing it as like the insight thing. I quite often now, I've got to a point after, 8 years of running my own business and interviewing people, this sense of insight. So insight comes to you, which is normally come from a reaction from somebody else, or somebody said, have you noticed you have this pattern of the way you talk or the way you think about something. You know, oh my God, I do, don't I? Then you get this insight, and then you're able to work with the insight. How you do that can look different. And obviously working with therapists and coaches and stuff could be a very useful tool. But I think those insights for me now on a daily basis, I have to say daily, I get these little insights. They could be really small ones, really big ones. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I behave in that way. And I literally had one the other day that I'm going to share with you quickly, get your thoughts on it. And I mentioned it on the group chat I did yesterday, which is like one of the oldest programs that the human race has is negativity bias, right? It's like this primal thing that we have to protect us and help us to survive, you know, dangerous times and looking for danger. So it's very useful, but this negativity bias is like the oldest of the programming that we have. And I was saying something about something in regards to what could happen in the future. So my instinct was, you know, I'll do this, but anything could happen, right? So we say, you know, anything could happen in life. But my instinct then when I give an example of anything can happen, like most of us, will be a negative thing, not a positive thing. So I could say that anything could happen with the podcast, but, you know, I could be hit by a car or something could go horribly wrong. I could lose all my money or I lose a loved one. So my examples of what could happen automatically were bad ones, rather than me saying, anything could happen. I could win the lottery, or, you know, me and my partner would fall so deeply in love that we want to travel the world together. They're all really positive things that could happen that could end the podcast. It's funny how I chose to use loads of really dark stuff and how that's kind of programmed in me. So what are your thoughts on that? How we tend to trip into finding the negative stuff as a way to protect ourselves, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember many years ago, and I used to work in General Electric, and people say, "Oh, you're really negative." I'm not. I'm not. It's like denial, you know. No, I'm not. And then, you know, later on when I got into the work and I look back and I think, oh my God, how negative was I? I was always looking at the negative things in life and not the positives. And it does make such a difference. It's that mindset, isn't it? It's like moving from one type of thought pattern into a different thought pattern. And it does change your life, without a doubt. And, you know, you also got a bit of time. There's a time lapse if you want, because you can think a negative thought and think, whoa, stop, self-awareness. Now let's turn that into a positive. So it's okay to have a negative thought, but also catch yourself and turn it back into the positive. So, it's fun as well, you know. Have a bit of fun with it, because that's what life is about, isn't it? So start practicing, looking at how you think, and think, oh, okay, that is quite negative. How can I turn that into a positive? Because you will benefit from it. You know, it works. They call it the law of attraction, and some people say, "Well, that's pants." But try it out, see what changes. Because the only way people are going to believe it is when it works for them. You know, and I'm a prime example that when they used to call me that, it was so annoying because I really didn't like people saying I was negative, but I was so negative. But it changed. Now I'm Mr. Positive.
Yeah, and what it touches on quite nicely is like how adaptable these things can be, and the plasticity of your brain and neuroplasticity and all that stuff, and how we can start to reshape the brain and neurons, how they fire. It takes time and it takes repetition and daily practice, but they say that even with meditation, that over time, if you keep it up, it does start to change gamma waves in your brain. All kinds of stuff can change and shift, and things become more natural. Your habits drift away and new ones come in without you having to constantly try and make those habits happen. They just naturally unfold. So it's remembering the power of the daily practice isn't about changing and swapping things out and making things happen in that moment. It's like, just do the practice and then let what needs to unfold. And that's what I've realized with negativity stuff, is that I've gone into an environment in this new job with half the workforce. They were all new. We all had dreams. We all were doing our own thing. It all shattered because of COVID, and now we're all there. So many of them are like, oh God, you know, what's happened, you know, sucks. I'm longing for my life. They're not saying these things. That's the words I'm giving them. But you can tell that they're really struggling and stuff. And there's a lot of negative self-talk and getting annoyed with managers because they're not in the right space. They're kind of like, why am I here? Whereas I've gone in there totally different and brought this kind of light of saying, do you know what? You know how lucky we all are to have jobs. This is so amazing. It's so amazing. We've got this, supermarkets aren't going anywhere. People need to eat. And I've done that because that's what I believe in. And people, I can see them changing when they're around me, and they say to me, Owen, why are you so no, you're always so like positive and like hopeful about stuff. I'm like, well, what's the point of me being in this environment going, oh God. So it's not easy, but I've gone in with the intention of saying, what can I get out of this experience right now? What can serve me here? And like we're getting that feedback, oh, you know, why are you so negative? I'm getting the opposite. And it's very, very special to hear that. And it's rubbing off on them. So I say, don't get invested in the politics of the environment. Just be invested in the beauty of this security right now. And it's working. And they're all very young. So this is really good for people in their late teens, early 20s to get a sense of what it is to be grateful in every element of our life. So anyway, there's a few examples about how we can integrate this.
That's amazing, actually, Owen, because I just see it as this light that's come in. And when we talk about like for like attraction, if you like, people will come to places and get drawn to places, if you like, that have similar thought patterns. So they are complementing each other by keeping each other down. And then one person comes in and stays in their power and stays in their positivity, and that has a ripple effect on everybody else, which is amazing, because to do that, sometimes the negativity can pull the positive person down and you need to get out of the environment. But if you've got the ability to go in and change that and get that feeling coming up, that's quite extraordinary. So well done on you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you can be pulled into any environment. You know, if I'm around lots of them and it's becoming very negative on that shift, I will get pulled into it. And then I notice myself starting to also complain about politics and blah, blah, blah. And when I say politics, I mean work politics, not actual politics. And I have to then just catch myself for a moment. Like you said, I catch myself and go, hang on a minute, I'm getting way too invested in something that really doesn't matter. Step back and do my tagline that all of the guys at work think is really funny. Where they're like, oh, Owen, oh God, I'm getting invested, aren't I? So I've created this really fun culture of them going, oh my God, I'm getting too invested. And they make a joke of it and it completely takes all the power out of it. And then they're able to step back and look at it differently. So it's sometimes those cues and those sayings or things that you can say to yourself, mantras, can really allow you to get back into your body and go, I'm getting caught up again. And that's okay. It's cool. No judgment. Let's just come back.
That's a brilliant example of self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely. Hence why I'm so drawn to rebrand the podcast with this, because it's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Steve. That was amazing. And I hope that was useful to the audience. So we're going to dive in now into your story and a little bit about the work that you do, all centered around self-awareness too. So my first question for you is, like I say to most people, is just to share a little bit about your story, any challenges that you've had mentally, emotionally, physically. Of course, I know pretty much all of this already, but for the good of the audience, just share with us anything that's kind of got you stuck or got in your way in your lifetime.
So my journey started right at birth, if you like. It was a traumatic birth. I was a month late, and then roll on to a 4-year-old who was having his second day in school and then got hit around the back of the head by a teacher for opening the crayons, put in front of the class, got confused and scared, really didn't know what he was doing wrong, and then became afraid of getting things wrong. And then I go on to a 9-year-old and an experience with friends and going into his mother, looking for some comfort, but getting told to go out and stand up for yourself because I was upset. So I then told myself I'm all alone and unloved. No, I didn't know I was doing these things. It was sort of priming me and was part of my map that we've talked about earlier. And then roll on again to 17. And I was with a girlfriend. She got pregnant and we talked about things and we said, no, we're too young. I just started an apprenticeship. But then somebody comes on the phone and said, well, if you don't marry, this will happen. And I'm like, well, like you then, we'll get married, So saying yes when I meant no, which then became a manipulation thing. So these were all like the things that were happening that were my blind spots at the time, I suppose. I didn't know the impact it was having on me. And then we roll on later in life and I developed irritable bowel syndrome, which is all about the stress. But that probably started earlier and then became part of my life. So all these things were going on throughout my years, and I accepted a lot of them as a part of overthinking and this is life, this is what it's about. And it wasn't until that 34-year-old sat in front of somebody after I'd had hypnosis, and they said, you release all the things that no longer serve any purpose in your life. And my journey started from that point. It was an experience that I'll never forget. It was a man called Stephen Gilligan, who was he was an apprentice, I suppose is the word, of Milton Erickson, who I studied a lot of his work. And that experience sort of created something, a vacuum inside me that started to whirl around like in a cowboy film, the tumbleweeds and rolling down the street. It was all my insides going. And then I went into the coaching process and everything just seems to start coming up. And then I started to get the realization of what these things and these experiences that I'd had, and then obviously there was many others, that had tagged in. And that's where we get lost, is the taggings and in the attachments to what's happened. But bit by bit, I started releasing them and becoming more aware of myself and who I was and how I was being in situations. And as I started to release these, then everything started to get better. My relationships got better. My health got better. And that's when my passion started to really grow, in that, you know, anybody can have this, because most of our issues, I believe, are through experiences we've had and how we're holding on to things and can't see what's really causing the problem. The ISE, I call them, the initial sensitizing event, that's stacked like a game of Jenga, you know, when you put all these little blocks up, and until you pull the right one out, everything collapses. And that's a little bit about what the work is about. You pull the right peg out and it collapses lots of other issues. So some people will come for one thing and leave after a few sessions having resolved lots of other things. And it's a wonderful journey. And I'm always looking for the next thing. You know, it's a lifetime's journey, because there's always something to find in yourself. There's always something to improve in yourself. And it may take a few years before you have the next improvement, but that's okay, because you're still journeying on. But if you can be above all healthy, then that will help you to be a little bit more happy and then successful. And I think that's what a lot of us are looking for. But health has got to be paramount, you know. And I do believe some of the things we're holding on to does create that uneasiness within ourselves. That's what we call it, not disease, but unease. And the more relaxed and calm and peaceful you can feel inside, the more people get that from, you know, coming out from you. And that's when you start to move through life, attracting different people, and some people will drift away from your life as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that. And, you know, a lot of the things that came up for me there was, you know, how much there is to unpack with things that happen to us. And so many of these experiences are things that we weren't able to deal with or to process or to hold, you know, so they could move through us. You know, they get stuck and stagnant and then create behavioral patterns. And those patterns lead to further trauma, because you put yourself in situations which trigger you even more, and then you may be more fearful. So like we talked about on the show, none of this is easy, and we're not as simply saying self-awareness, you get it, boom, you're sorted, because it's not, because the triggers will still trip you up. And I love the Jenga analogy too, because, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, getting to the source, but the problem you've got with getting to the source of something is that you may have 5 different sources for 5 different traumas. So you have to just take your time and do it safely. And like you said, with an element of as much peace as you can as you go through the process, because you don't want to keep re-triggering yourself. And, you know, like the story you told us about from the birth story all the way through school and all this kind of stuff, is that I think so many of us have the early childhood stuff, but then we have further stuff as adults, which then compound the inner child, and the inner child starts to get overwhelmed and starts to drown a little bit in all this. And then we want to dissociate because it's just too difficult. And it's a testament to how tough it can be to be a human being. I think we're starting to learn that now. But like you said, there's many tools and resources that we can tap into to make this happen. And for you, you know, obviously in the work that you're doing now, did the support that you got through your journey pull you into this kind of work? Is it something that you saw, wow, okay, this is really powerful, I want to find out more? And were you in a position to reach out quite easily? Were you a little bit standoffish about looking for help?
No, I don't think I was once I realized that there was something inside me that I had to look at, then I started chasing the rainbows, if you like. But initially, to be honest, I thought everything was fine in my world. I didn't realize all this stuff was there. I actually took somebody else. I had a massive passion that we are more than we believe we are, because when I was growing up, I loved these programs that would have people like telepathic. And I'm thinking, as I was growing up, I thought there's something there. There's something that we are not aware of, that we could be better. So I always had this yearning to go down a certain route. But what really drew me into it was me taking somebody else to get them fixed. But nobody's broke. I just thought this person had problems. I'm fine. But it was me that broke down during the session. And that's when I started to realize there's something not right here. And that's when my journey really began. So I think many of us are drawn into things when it's the right time for us. And the earlier it happens, I think the better. I always think if I got a 6 or an 8-year-old child in the room and the mother's sitting there and we're working with the child, because not a lot had happened in their lives. But when I get somebody coming in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, then they've had a lot of experiences and maybe not had any help. So there's a lot more for us to work through. Fortunate, I came around 34, my transformation started, and it's still ongoing. But I often think, I wish I did this when I was 16. But my life would have been a lot different then, because I wouldn't have the children I've got. I think our journeys are partly what we meant to go on, and we'll come to certain crossroads and we'll have a choice. And whichever road we pick to go down is the road we meant to go down, because that's what our lessons are for us. But it's how we are able to deal with what comes our way. And I know that through the work I've done, I can meet my challenges far better and easier now that I'm in a better place, and I know what's going on for me in the background.
Yeah, and I think what came up for me then was just like the exposure that comes your way as you get older. You're more exposed to different experiences, and those experiences will tell you a lot more about yourself and your triggers. So that if we hide away from the world, which is a normal thing to do if you're traumatized or scared or fearful of outside and people and all this kind of stuff, we will shut off, we will disassociate. So therefore we're not getting the exposure. So we can stay at a level of just being stuck there and not putting ourselves in positions to have more exposure to things. But I think that exposure also then brings you the opportunity to see more. And it's a really tough balance to sort of work through. And I'd been in a point of being stuck in the house and couldn't speak to new people and being super depressed all the way through to today, where, as you know, Steve, World Health Heroes, I would travel the country and do big pitches to 20 people and hold the space and stuff like that. So but that took a level of exposure, which I wouldn't have got if my partner hadn't split up with me back then. So I had to move out and move with my dad and look after myself. I was then exposed to real life, and it unraveled everything that was going on for me, which I was completely oblivious to. Like you said, I was depressed, but was unaware I was depressed, right? I just thought it was me. But that exposure showed me more, I think.
Well, I think everybody's journey is an individual journey. Everybody's map is their own individual map. So it's really about responsibility, being responsible for yourself, and saying the only person that can really change you is you. If you get the right support, it makes it a lot easier. But we've all got the resources and ability to change what we need to change or want to change. It's just taking that step, because that's usually what's quite scary for people. What is in the background. And I often say, the first thing I say to people when they come to me is, you don't have to tell me anything, because that's what a lot of people are afraid of. They're worried about, what have I got to say, this and that. We're dealing a lot with emotions, and that's what makes human beings, as you said earlier on, it can be a tough time. And I think it's that way because we've got emotions. When we think about things, and the emotion is a strong thing that takes over. And then it sort of takes us down the wrong path sometimes, because we start following the emotion instead of being more rational and thinking, okay, any emotion is really just a feeling, and we can change that feeling to something better. But that's where the magic is, I suppose, is how do we make that horrible feeling into a better feeling? And that's the challenge for people, really, because if you can feel better about you and life, then things are going to work a little bit better for you than being stuck in the things that are not good for you, that are pulling you down. And it is a tough journey. Nothing's easy. If I had a magic wand, it'd be brilliant. I said to people, could come in and I can wave this magic wand, close your eyes, and when you open your eyes, everything's going to be different. But I have seen little miracles happen for people as well, where their lives have changed on a 5-minute conversation. It's just they've been able to see something, and that's it. That can all it needs to be sometimes is talk, communicate, say what's going on. But very often people have got this act where they are persona is everything's great in my world and fine, but inside they're crumbling. Say if that's what's going on. Say that's going on, because people will be more supportive, more empathetic, and you'll find your way out of it. It's not about pretending that everything's fine when it isn't. Just say it's not okay. I don't feel good. There's nothing wrong with that, because I don't think there's many people in this world who haven't been in that place. We can all say, yeah, life's fine, life's great, but we've all had those little dark moments. I know I have.
Yeah, definitely. And again, what came up for me there was attachment. We talked a lot about this yesterday in our group call, which was how attached we can get to just all kinds of stuff, even attached to our own sensations and emotions. And we want to have a sense of safety. We're always on the hunt for safety, whether we're aware of it or not. But sometimes actually we get attached to these darker sensations because at least there's some element of safety. I'm familiar with the sensation, so I'll hold on to it. I'll stay attached to it. And these attachments actually become quite damaging over time. So how can we feel something different? How can we pendulate into something that feels a little bit different and then come back to our safety until that new sensation becomes safer for us to hold? And this attachment element is something that's really, really, I've been doing a lot of Buddhist text research, and they talk a lot about this stuff, about how this attachment becomes, it kind of governs us, and we need more of that attachment because it makes us feel safe. But if you weren't attached to anything, what would this moment look like? And it's something to really become aware of and think about a little bit. What would this moment feel like if I wasn't attached to anything in particular and I wasn't trying to get something or hold on to something? I think so much of us getting stuck is holding on. We're stuck because we're holding on to stuff, because it's the better the devil, right? And it comes into that.
Well, it's not only that, I give some people an excuse. It's I've got this label. This is what they've told me I've got, and it keeps them stuck, because then it gives them an excuse when they're not being the way they should be. And that's another area where people, as you say, they get caught up in the attachment and they stay stuck with it. And often if they break away, they go, oh, I can't believe I was doing that. But at the time it feels comfortable, and they stay there. But anything can be changed. There's always something that can be done. Always something, never mind, or regardless of what's going on for the person, there's always something that can move them to somewhere a little bit better. Once they start the movement, they'll start to sort things out for themselves. Every human being has got an intelligence, a deeper innate intelligence, they'll say. And they've got this amazing subconscious mind that knows, and it can work for you, but it's that part that's working against you because of the map again, I suppose, the conditioning is had, but a map can be changed. And only the slight change sometimes is the catalyst of the huge changes and benefits that come with it.
Yeah, I really like that. And it's kind of the holding on element of it too. We hold on to things because it gives us a sense of meaning or identity. It's how easy or difficult is it for us to let go of things? How much are we grasping to things to give us a sense of something? So, what would life be like if I had to just let go of the podcast? How would I feel if I had to let go of my partner or my stepson? Or, how does that look? Could I live without these things? Because if I can't, I'm holding on for dear life. I'm kind of governed then by things being okay and staying the same, and life is impermanent. It just keeps changing and changing and changing. and is holding on and not being able to let go is one of the hardest things, I think, for so many of us to practice, is that we could lose everything. So if you're building your life off those foundations, it's so hard because we're wired to connect and to bond, and unfortunately we are wired to bond, but people will also die, and people will also leave us and betray us, but they'll also bring us unbelievable joy and change our lives and give us more help than we could ever dream of. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Back to balance, I suppose, again, isn't it? Finding the balance in life. But I remember somebody saying to me during the coaching session, actually, just let it go. And I'm like, how can I do that? It's been a part of me. Now I realize I've been holding on to this for a long time. You can't just let it go. But actually you can. It's a choice. It's your choice. Do you want to keep this thing that's been holding you back in life and limiting your life in some way? Or do you want to set yourself free? So it's just a choice. And choose what's best for you.
Definitely. We're going to dive even more into this stuff as this conversation gets going with mindset. But I just want to ask you one quick question before we move on to mindset. Which is, I always like to bring this because I'm very aware that you have this, whatever we're going to call it, superpower, ability to pick up on other people's shifts, right? And we've done those coaching sessions before. And as always, I thank you so much for everything you've done with me up to this point. And I know that you notice my shifts and energy and stuff. And it's very beautiful because I don't even notice them 100% till you mention it. And then when you mention it, oh shit, I did notice that shift. And you've taught me the ability to feel my own shifts. And it's a gift that, I'll be eternally grateful for because it's something I hadn't thought about before. Where did that begin? What are your thoughts around this thing you have with noticing people's shifts? What is that?
Well, I think we've all got it. As children are really more aware of things, and I think we as adults stop them. A child might say they might talk to an invisible friend, and we say, well, there's nobody there. No, let them do what they do, because the abilities have always been there, but we've been taught that everybody is feeling what I'm feeling. And that was part of who we were. So I remember it back as far as 10 years of age. Don't really have much awareness before then, so I don't know why it happened either. I've never really got to that. But I went through life, feeling these different things, getting reactions to things, and it wasn't until one day somebody said about chakras, and I said, what's a chakra? I've never heard of it. And they showed me a diagram, and it's the system through the body, and how are we reacting to things, and how our autonomic system is functioning, and different things like that. I said, okay. And they said, you need to control it. I said, what do you mean? And I really didn't understand it. But then I was training through a guy called Gary Craig with the EFT stuff. And he used to wave his hand in the middle of him and the other person he was working with. And I thought, why is he doing that? And he said he had the sense of the ability to feel the difference in the texture of the air. So he knew if something was changing in the energy between him and the person he was working with. And he said, you'll find your own antenna, if you like. And I was working with somebody one day, and my eyes started watering. And I thought, I wonder if that's it. And well, it'll look like I'm crying. It'll be daft. That can't be it. And then it was a little while after. So, I'm asking the questions now, my unconscious mind. What is my ability? Where is it? And I'm working with somebody one day, and this feeling that I've always felt went off. And I asked the person what just happened, and they started crying. And I realized then that was when I made the connection. It wasn't always me that these feelings were about. I was picking other people up most of my life, but I never knew. And the moment I put that together, became a catalyst in my work. It was like the next person I worked with, it happened again. And they said, how did you know that? I said, what do you say now? Without, making somebody feel quite afraid. And I just said, I got a sense. And that's what it was. I had a sense that something they connected to while they were talking about it was moving an energy in their body. Yeah, there was a physical sensation of a movement. And if we get back into the deeper part of the work is, somebody once said, our memories in the cells of the body. And I felt, well, I've got an engineering background, and I know that the the cells change every 7 or 8 weeks. So how can you hold a memory if it's changing? And then they explained to me that every cell that changes or replaces a cell takes the memory on, it replicates the one it's changing with. So until we remove the memory, which can be like a little echo stuck to it, then that cell doesn't regenerate as a new cell with new memory. And that made complete sense to me. And I thought, okay. And I started realizing that even on the phone, even if I'm in another part of the world, I still feel the energy shift with a person. And ironically, my family said, that's stupid, but I pick it up on recordings on TV. I know when the person's about to get upset. Because the energy will already shift, even though it's a recording. So I don't fully understand how it all works, but I know it works. And it's been huge in my work, because I know a lot of people say, well, I've been for help before, I've been here, I've done this, I've done that. And they come in a room and they sit there and I say, what just happened? And I think one client recently said that. All I ever remember him saying is, what just happened then? And they start to reconnect back. And I will say, not to sound sexist in any way, but it's more the men have disconnected from feeling that energy, because very often I'll say, did you just get that? And I go, what? I don't know what you're on about. But after a number of sessions, they say, oh, I just had a feeling. Now they're reconnecting back. So I think everybody's got the ability. It's just some of us have shut off from it. And that's what a lot of the work is then, is reconnecting the person back with that. So they're more aware of their own feelings and the sensations that are going on with them. I work with a lot of young lads who are angry, 10-year-olds, and I'll say, okay, how do you know when you get angry? And they just look at me and say, I don't know what you mean. So, well, where do you get the feeling? They're not aware of it, which is quite sad, really. And it's nobody's fault. It's just that, very often it's man up. Let's get on with it. And we're not taught from young, much like I wasn't. I had to learn this as I went through my journey, that, it's okay to be in touch with your emotions. It's okay for men to cry. It's okay to be upset. And I find more and more men are coming to me now in their mid-40s, 50s, and looking back and thinking, I was a bully when I was young, Nobody taught me how to be in touch with my feelings. I had to just stand up for myself and be the tough one. But, it's in there. It's in every one of us. And I'm finding more and more people coming now, looking back and saying, oh, God, I wish I knew a lot of this before.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing all that. And so many points that came up for me then. But so I just want to touch on that, because I know my audience is very much from the somatic experiencing and polyvagal sector. Another way to look at what you're describing here, which I really like, this is just my perception and opinion, but is neuroception. So nervous systems going on a dance together, and we're kind of wired to pick up on other people's nervous systems, so as a way to protect ourselves. So this neuroception, this sort of dance and picking up on other people's nervous systems, is a form of picking up on their energy. So vocal tone, eye contact, body language, the movement in which they move, the way they move their body, it's all what our nervous system's picking up on before our cognitive function can kick in. So there's another way to explain a little bit what Steve's talking about, is kind of what's coming up for me. So for those audience members, think about it that way. It's a nervous system thing. I get it can be explained in so many different ways, but actually the problem with us as humans, we're always searching for meaning and trying to figure everything out. How about we don't do that? How about we just love the fact that Steve has the ability to pick up on these things? And when I've worked with him, it's been very powerful, and he's taught me how to look at my own shifts. That's all that matters. Let's not try and break it down really specifically to try to figure out every scientific bit or whatever. Let's just let it be beautiful. And what you're talking about with the cells is really cool. That reminds me a lot of Bessel van der Kolk's work with Body Keeps the Score, and how the experiences are held in the body, be it cells, tissues. We're complicated beings, us humans, and we hold on to a lot of stuff on all levels, spiritually, mentally, physically, everything, emotionally. And it can have a big impact in how we grow and how our organs work. And these traumas, they've proven these traumas can affect, how organs function and all this stuff as you hold this energy in your system. I think the biggest part of a healing journey is to release a lot of this energy that we're stuck with and is coded into our biology, I guess. And it's really exciting research out there, and I can't wait to find out more about it from guests. But I just want to thank you for sharing that, and it will be an additional question on the timestamps, because I think it's a really, really powerful message.
And what you just said as well, I often say we're all bonkers because we can think and we can feel. It's these emotions that play up most of the time with people, yeah? I mean, we call it anxiety, we call it depression, we call it anger, we call it fear, but basically they're feelings in our body, aren't they, that we've interpreted to mean something. And in a lot of cases, they are valuable. It's great to have that fear when you're put in a situation where there's danger. So the system is working right. But I think it comes down to everyday life now. There are so many triggers that the system doesn't get time to settle back down. And that's where the transition has been over the centuries. Is it worked well when cavemen were about, but now, there's so many things triggering us in our environment, and keeping that system, that nervous system up at a high level, we needed to calm down. And that's why it's important really to find things that work for you, that can give you that time, that can give you that settling of that emotional state, if you like.
Definitely. And I think a big part of it is the tuning in and listening. That's come up a lot for me the last few weeks interviewing people, is the power of tuning in and listening. So listening to your own body sensations and thought processes, and just tuning in, listening in, and being a witness, and go, okay, that's interesting. And then you can start applying that to other people too. And it takes out all of the charge when someone's being maybe slightly passive aggressive towards you. Once you get an idea of nervous systems, you can see that coming before it even gets going. When you first bump into somebody at work, you're like, oh God, okay, are they okay? Become really aware of the nervous systems around you, their body language, vocal tone, all this stuff, and you'll be able to spot it in advance, so you don't get triggered by them when they say something to you. You're aware that they're not quite right, and what you could probably do, go, are you okay? And that could discharge all their energy. You just avoided a conflict straight off the bat, which was never meant to happen anyway. So I think this tuning into our own bodies can allow us to do the same for others, and that's 100% what has worked for me out there in the world. When I go outside, it's just a load of nervous systems walking about the city of Bath. I'm able to tune into that, and it's like
Here's a picture.
Yeah, it's a whole other level of people watching. It's like a deep level version of that, and it's been so empowering for me to let go of other people's perception of me, because I can see where they're at any given time and pick up on that and not be taking it personally. But anyway, I'm aware that we are staying around this question too for a very long time, because it's so beautiful. But I really want to touch on now, if we can, going back to more personal based tuning in and listening, a little bit more about mindset and how that does relate to becoming more self-aware. So what do you feel are the connections between mindset and awareness? How can we sort of integrate those in flow?
Well, I think, my mantra on my website partly is change your mindset, change your life. And I've seen that happen for so many people. If they can just shift the way they think about something, the way they perceive it, the perspective on something, then that can change the internal representation for the person. And it can be very subtle sometimes. People sometimes come looking for bands marching and fireworks going off, and this, I want this transformation. But most wonderful, long-lasting transformations happen very subtly. It's all playing out in the background, and when we can be more aware of how we're thinking and feeling, because that's your cognitive behavior therapy stuff, is the thought is creating the feeling, and the behaviors are coming from it. And the way you're thinking is so important to the way you're feeling. It's the state you're in at that time. And most people, many people I should say, have got this overthinking going on. It affects their sleep, and we know sleep deprivation is catastrophic for people's functioning through the day. So the knock-on effect is going on. And generally, that's because people are overthinking something, and it happens very often at night when they settle down. Now, if you can start becoming more aware, it's your mindset that you're sometimes getting into the habits and bad habits of doing something, then you've got to start mixing it up and changing it, even if it's changing the way you get ready for your bedtime, your sleep at night. Change the little routines around. That starts to change the cognition, because you're altering things around, and then the feelings start to change. Again, it's easy to talk about self-awareness, and think, well, if I just manage to do this, it's going to be easy. Some things I worked at for 8 years before I made the shift, the change. And sometimes I wanted to give up and think, oh, this is hard work, trying to stay on top of, not overthinking or being aware of my feelings. But I also realized that things were getting better for me. It doesn't matter, we're not talking about anybody else. If you're functioning well, if you're being well, you're more service, you're somebody that people want to be around, and that's what life is about. You're getting your basic needs then of being in community and being attached, to people. Not maybe attached to the wrong word, but being a part of your community. So a lot of people know about basic needs and love and connection and different things. And when we are fulfilling them, then we operate in a better way. But the reason we're not fulfilling them is because of our lack of self-awareness and the way we think about things. So back to the map again. You can change your map, you can think differently, you can feel differently, you can behave differently. And when you start becoming more aware of it, then you have the ability to change whatever you want to change, to adapt to what's going on in your environment on a moment-by-moment basis. And that's what it's about. It's flexibility. Some people in all or nothing thinking, or black and white thinking, they call it. Whereas if you've got flexibility, you're looking at sometimes belief systems. So, we can get complicated as we like, but we don't want to lose people in this. It's just belief systems are a big thing. If you believe something rigidly, you're going to go with that way all the time. But actually, if you shift your way of thinking, it gives you more flexibility. And that's what I think it's about, really, is being a little bit more flexible to be able to adapt better to what's going on moment by moment. And then it becomes your automatic. We can change the old automatic for a new automatic because it's given us more benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And what came up for me is kind of that, this taking care of our mind. So, the old cheesy thing, we're so adapted to take care of our bodies, treat our bodies in the right way, feed it the right things and give it enough rest. But it's all about taking care of your mind. Your mind might need some space. It might need some stillness. It might need some stimulus. It might need some flow state. And it's knowing how best to take care of your mind. And I guess mindset on some level is about knowing your mind well too, and knowing how to sort of change a few things up, but without forcing it too much, of course. And what's so interesting about the way we think is like this confirmation bias too. So we get so rigidly stuck in belief systems that we'll go out and look for confirmation bias of that belief system, and not seeing the truth that it's much more flexible than that. So we're constantly looking for confirmation. And, a big part of like my journey was being able to see that outside of rigid thought patterns and all this kind of stuff, what does this moment look like? What does this experience, this day look like if I didn't have that mindset? And stripping away some of that, though not easy, can allow you to see that actually it's just all bullshit, really. It's all just thoughts aren't facts and they're flying through and we're attaching to them. It's that how would you feel about this situation if you didn't have pre-existing opinions about it? It'd be a totally different thing, right? And it's so hard because we're so kind of patterned, and we just by society, and we get fed all this information. That's a whole other storyline, though, being fed information via social media and our families and communities that we're in, and even in certain groups of people, with different belief systems. We get really hooked into the belief system. I am all about this belief system. This is who I am. And then losing every other part of ourselves in the mission to be the best version of that thing. And we lose our way from, it's like the opposite of present moment awareness, I think, because you're living out something that's outside of you that isn't part of your innate nature, I guess. Does any of that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, as you was talking, a couple of things will come up for me then. And there's one thing I did learn many years ago is to come from nothing, So we can come with all these thoughts and judgments, but if we can quiet the mind and come from nothing, as if it's the first time we're experiencing something, if you like. You know, experience can be a great asset to be able to deal with something, but we've got that experience there, we can use it. But if I come from nothing, I'm not judging anything that's going on in that moment. I'm giving it that flexibility to be able to put on whatever I need to put on to deal with it in a better way. And I think there's 4 things that are key in people living a wonderful life, let's call it that. And that's getting the mindset in the right place. So being able to rest it when it needs rest and understanding it, as you say, and thinking in better ways. Nutrition obviously is a key factor, because it's what we put into our body's going to respond to. And again, self-awareness. If you eat something that makes you feel like crap, then don't eat it. If you feel great after eating something, then obviously your body's responding. Exercise, you know, is another important part. And then sleep, good sleep. If you can get them 4 things in the right place for you, but for every person, it'll be different. You know, some people 10 people out of the 10, 5 of them might go exactly the same ways, and the other 5 completely different. You know, we've all got our own individual life to live. So it's finding what works for you. And that's really the challenge. You know, steak and chips might be fine for me, but you might be throwing up on it. You know, it might not work for your system. So it's just finding it. An 8-hour sleep might work wonderful for you, but somebody else might need 10, or somebody might need 5. You've got to work that out for yourself. It's your journey, it's your life, you know. And for me, people talk about purpose. What's your purpose? And unless we're making a difference in the world, but I think, you know, my purpose is for me to have the happiest, most successful, but above all, healthiest time that I have on this planet until it's my time to go. And if I can achieve that, then I've served my purpose. There's a film I watched the other day called Soul. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, I literally watched that 2 days ago, and I was bawling my eyes out. Me and my partner loved it so much, so much.
But, you know, there's so many messages in there, isn't it? You know, and it can relate a lot to what we've been talking to throughout this podcast. There's so many little messages throughout that saying, and they talk about purpose on there. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. Watch it if you like. It's a Pixar movie, I think, is it? My son put it on. He said, "Oh, there's this new movie out." Not something I would have watched, perhaps, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, you know, the biggest part of that film, like, yeah, without spoilers, is like, purpose is a funny old thing, isn't it? Because I think we're wired to it's really important for us to have an element of purpose, but it's also remembering that if you just live out your whole life based on this purpose, what happens when the purpose is gone? You're a shell of a person. You have no meaning anymore. So it's having a nice balance there. And I just wanted to quickly touch on something before we move on, because it's really important, is for people to remember kind of that flow between sort of the mind and body state. So, you know, like you said, it's the flow between the two. So the way you're thinking and stuff can affect the state that your body's in, and your emotions, your feelings, and then that affects behavior. But also the state that you're in will also feed information back to your mind, and then your mind will be more negative if you're in a more depressive or anxious state. So it's getting that flow between the information that's been fed down and the information that's been fed up. And how can you create a really flowing energy there, which is very permeable and can move around and be fluid, because that allows us to see things a little bit more clearly. And they talk a lot about, I know, Rick Hansen talks a lot about state to trait, and I think Tara Brach and stuff talks about this too, is how can we turn the body state ongoing into a trait, so we become this state of being. It takes daily practice, again, which we're going to talk about in the next question, but I just want people to know that there is a way over time to create that really lovely flow. And I just wanted to share one thing with you, Steve, see what you think, especially from a gut and digestive situation, is that I have this relationship with food, which is very interesting at the moment, which is, if I tell myself that I should be able to eat whatever I want, life's too short, I'm going to enjoy food, it's very beautiful, that sounds great, right? Which means I'm probably going to eat more crap with that mindset, right? With that belief system. But I can also tell myself, but if I eat really well, I'll probably sleep better and things will feel better and I won't feel so sluggish. I'm also correct. So there's two things there which I can convince myself either way. So on the days I want to eat crap, I'll have a big belief system about how it's good to eat whatever you want and be loose and free and life. And then the other one, which is very much take care of myself. So people need to see that actually you can convince yourself either way that you're right through the power of how you're using your mind. So what are your thoughts on that? Because it always makes me chuckle, depending on what day I'm in. I will really believe it. It's amazing.
And I think you're right. It depends on mood, doesn't it? And this is where the journey is. I mean, there's things I probably still eat sometimes that are not the best for me. I have become more aware of that. I still enjoy them, so it's okay to do it. Yeah, but where am I going with this? I think sometimes people are eating because of moods and things that are unresolved as well. So they'll tend to reach for the things that are not so healthy, that they probably know are not doing them good, overindulging, if you like, but it's satisfying something as well. And that's, very often I work with people and it's about weight. And they'll say, right, I eat too many of this, too much of that, and they know they're doing it, but they can't stop. But then when you get to the bottom of it, it's like, I get really bored, and then they reach for this. So, okay, so let's look into the boredom. Or, I get really down about this because I sit and I think about it. So again, it's back to self-awareness, because once you can find out what your triggers are, you can start, your body and mind will automatically change to eating the better things, the better choices anyway, and you'll feel fulfilled. I often say to people, when you're at home, put a little post-it on the cupboard where you keep your chocolate or your crisps or whatever it is you're trying to pull away from, because you know that they are the thing that's holding you back. And ask, what is it I really want? Or what is it I'm really looking for? Because usually we are using something to satisfy something that's missing for us, or something that's giving us a problem in the background. So we have got the ability to change how we eat. And even our drink, people reach for alcohol because it takes away a feeling. It's a comfort, but eventually the feeling gets stronger. So then the alcohol intake has to go up, and we can relate this to so many other things, drugs, cigarettes, people will smoke more as they go on because the feelings are getting stronger. Usually there's an attachment there somewhere. And you can still slip. It's okay to have a rubbish day as well, because they say it's good to mix the body, confuse the body a little bit, because it'll remember too much and it'll get into too much of a pattern. So it's okay to mix it up as well. So have your good days, have a couple of bad days. Don't beat yourself up all the time. It's okay to slip.
Yeah, it's kind of respecting every moment you're in. So, sometimes you may be in an avoidant mindset of, you want to avoid something. So avoid that feeling of boredom, so I'll eat something. And sometimes you're stimulus seeking, so you're trying to just get a high, and it actually changes on a daily basis depending on what's going on for you. Sometimes it's strong in one area or the other. And it's been really interesting to see with my sleep and stuff being so affected by doing night shifts and deprivation, how that's impacted the way I eat and stuff. And I've got an ongoing joke with my partner, like, that's it for me, no more sugar. So every so often I'm eating something that day, no more sugar. And she just laughs her head off. She goes, what are you like? We do this for about 3 years. Like, that's it now, that's it. And I go back on it. So it's having compassion there. It's actually okay for me to eat sugar, but I don't need to have an opinion either way. I don't need to be like, I definitely need to have it because I need to be flexible, or the other way. Just let it all go. Just start to tune in and notice things, and things will probably change once you start tuning in. But it's funny how after nearly every shift at work, all of us, after doing a 10-hour shift when we're supposed to be asleep, we all potter around the store. So this is a massive supermarket. It's like a big sweet shop, right? And carb shop, everything we could ever need in one place. We're all pottering around with our baskets. None of us actually need any food. We're actually fully stocked at home. We're just walking around because we're tired with this basket, just buying just random shit we don't actually need. It's hilarious how we all do it. We're all like different human beings, but we're all doing it. We work in this place, and the conditioning is allowing us to walk around and just buy loads of random crap that we don't want.
Well, never shop when you're hungry, mate.
Never shop when you're hungry or when you're tired. So I'm like, I'm exhausted. So, I might have a little cheeky, appetizer on my way home or whatever. I don't actually need it at all. But also it's nice. So I get why I would want to do it, because it's lovely. So there's a lot a lot going on there. There's a lot of sensations involved, but it's just hilarious how we all do that. It's just another good storyline to show what we're all like.
It's another typical mindset thing at the moment, isn't it? What's going to happen now? New Year's Eve is coming, New Year's resolutions. I went over the shop the other day. I've already noticed there's a lot more people out walking. Now, whether that's because of, restrictions and getting out and having a bit of exercise, or whether they've started the New Year's resolution, like, I'm going to get fitter, I'm going to get rid of some of this. But by the end of January, most of it's changed. Many people have fallen off what they intended to do because they've talked themselves out of it. And this is where, to stay on something, you've got to be fully in our mindset and say, okay, my benefits, what are my benefits? What happens if I stop doing this? Oh, I go back to that. Is that where you want to be? So New Year's resolutions, I have got a video on that somewhere on my YouTube channel about the New Year's resolution and how to stay strong to it and carry it through and not fall off the wagon of about 3 or 4 weeks, because that's what a lot of people will do.
Yeah, New Year's things are whole the ball game. What came up for me there too was, values and what matters to us too, and all that kind of stuff being aligned with what matters. So that's a whole other ball game. But that's thrown in the mix too. That does have a big impact, especially if you're not sure what your values are. It can really impact what you think's best in any given moment because you don't have values to base them off. So there's that as well. But touching on some of the stuff that we've been talking about here with daily practice and stuff, because I know you do EFT work and you offer some amazing little techniques, and you've shown me quite a few over the years too that we can practice. How important do you think, I know we talk about this a lot, but let's cover it again, how important daily practices are, especially around cognitive awareness and stuff and how to integrate it? So what are your thoughts on daily practice and how to sustain it? Because I think most people really struggle to hold on to these daily practice for long periods of time. So what are your thoughts around all this?
I mean, the big thing, in the present day is mindfulness, isn't it? It's about, being in the moment, because you're not allowing these other thoughts to come in and you're more calm in yourself. But daily practice is finding what works for you as well, because some people don't sit and do a meditation. They feel they can't do it. So there's so many different types of things you can do. There's a recital of mantras in your mind. That's a daily practice. And if you start doing it, that's so easy because you haven't even got to sit yourself down. You can do it in the moment, wherever you are. So there's no real excuse that, it takes time. I haven't got the time for this, I haven't got the time for that. Many practices you can do in the moment while you're, even when you're driving, because it keeps you present. Most people are driving around in an unconscious state, daydreaming somewhere, and I think that's when accidents happen. But keeping yourself present, there's just so many different techniques you can use. I mean, one is a ho'oponopono, is just reciting a little mantra in your mind is, I love you, I accept you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. If I'm doing that, I'm present to what's going on, my mind is rattling off. And sometimes I feel a little shift in myself, because if you call transcendental meditation, you're transcending into your being, and sometimes something will release from you. You'll feel that little energy shift and think, okay, I don't know what that was, but thanks very much, because I just dealt with something and I don't even know what I dealt with. But I know that shift has created a movement that's releasing something from me. So EFT is a lovely technique. There's a new technique I'm doing at the moment which incorporates that. I'll let you know how that goes when I finish the training. Children, if they got this on a daily basis, they don't need to build this attachment through life. I think if they taught right, they'll have the ability to move things out in the moment. And EFT is something you can do in your mind. You don't have to physically tap. You can actually mentally tap. And, if a child is in a classroom, like it happened to me when I was young, I'm not saying that would happen these days with a smack around the head and things, but if a teacher was a little bit annoyed at them for some reason and he felt that they were being ridiculed in some way, then instead of holding on to that, they can just tap away, even though my teacher was, nasty to me. I love and accept myself and I let this go. I'm not going to hold on to it, because that becomes your first little part of your attachments. So if they've got the ability to release, the earlier the children learn things and have the ability to stay in the moment and release the little things that are happening in the environment, they're not going to carry the baggage like the people I've got to work with at the moment. Like my stuff and baggage I was carrying. It's just baggage through memories and experience. So we just learn to release it. So absolutely most important is if you can learn to stay present, again, it can be very difficult for some people because their minds are very busy. But my mind was very busy and I learned to do it. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. Nobody's special in a way that, well, that person could really do it. If somebody can do it, we can learn how they've done it and find a way to make it work for ourselves. That comes back to matching and mirroring, doesn't it? When Bandler and Grinder started learning about or finding that if a great athlete was achieving, then you had to find out how he thought. How does he think about what he does? What's his thought patterns? How do they approach something? And then you can find your way of approaching it. You don't have to copy them exactly. But if one person could do something, then they've gone through a process to get there, then we can succeed and do it as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. There's so much in there. And, one of the things that came up for me is that so often these daily practices are seen as coping tools rather than what they really are, which for me personally, which is like transformational tools and personal growth tools, that they're not meant to be a coping mechanism tool that you use, that you tap into when you need it. It's something that you do daily, regardless of however you're feeling on the spectrum. But for me, as someone who has definitely struggled to maintain certain daily practices, whether it's I'm not aligned with it or doesn't feel quite right. The beautiful thing about that actually is it's given me an opportunity to explore that. So everything that we go through is an opportunity to explore more, be it good or bad, how we're perceiving it. So me struggling to hold a daily practice is actually really exciting for me. I almost go, okay, so that's really interesting. So how can I compassionately look into that and go, what is it then? What is it, without getting into too much narrative and stuff? It's an opportunity for me to maybe just take a break, come into my body for a second and just explore those sensations. So if right now I want to do meditation, what stopped me from doing it? Just explore my body sensations. And as I broke that down, quite often I would notice that I was quite ramped up. I was buzzing. I was wanting to do something. I had an urge to do something. So I'm able to listen, go, okay, that's interesting. It's obviously not being still right now, obviously isn't the right thing for me, but because I'm taking time to reflect on that, I actually have more information to work with, right? Rather than just saying I'm rubbish at daily practice. I can go, I blatantly need to move. I have a lot of discharged energy in my system. Let's go for a walk. Awesome daily practice. Going for a walk is probably just an awesome, accessible daily practice that we can all do if we want to. So it's not right to be still right now. It's right to move. So maybe I should spend a couple of months with a daily walking practice. I don't worry about the stillness for now. It's just it's always an opportunity, isn't it, to learn more about what our body is telling us at any given time. And I guess it's picking it based off what information you're receiving, right?
Yeah. Even mindfulness walking, try it. Pay attention to what you're seeing, because very often if we let the thoughts take over, we miss half of what's going on around us. Did you see that rabbit? What rabbit? Oh, he was just bouncing around playing with his little mate over there, but you're in your head. No, I didn't see no rabbit, because I'm thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow or the next day. Who cares? Enjoy life as it's unfolding in front of you. And, being present is the big thing, and that's the practice. And you're right, you don't have to sit still to do it. You can do it in your everyday activities. It's just being aware of what's going on in your environment.
Yeah, I think any form of daily practice across any of the health-based sort of arenas that we're talking about is, like we said before, it gives you the opportunity to recode, reprogram, retrain neuroplasticity, all this stuff, body image starts to shift and change. It's just remembering that it can be anything. It could just be singing 2 songs a day. You always commit to singing 2 songs a day. It makes you feel fantastic. Your body will start to listen to that and go, God, this guy is feeling fantastic on a daily basis for 4.5 minutes. Pretty cool. And then things will start to shift and change. And I tell you what I've been doing at the moment. I've been listening to Bill Withers' Lovely Day. his song.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful song. I listen to it. It just brings me so much joy. But look at me now, big smile on my face. I've probably got blood rushing to my face. I'm going red
Just
because
talking
of
about
the
it.
joy. So just listening to that song every day makes me feel so excited about life. That's a daily practice because that's to shift my energy. So even listening to Bill Withers can do the job as a daily practice.
Well, just find one new word in a dictionary somewhere that you've never heard of before and learn that, right? It's keeping the mind in a good place as well, you know?
Oh yeah,
It's
learning
mind
that's
exercise,
amazing.
isn't it? You know?
Yeah, spend 5 days, 5 minutes a day just learning something. That's not a practice. People just need to remember there's so much you can do. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. Amazing stuff. Thank you, Steve. This has been really, really helpful. So my next question for you is, this is a massive question and I'm aware of time, so let's not go too deep in there, but it's to do with how you work with your clients, help them move from past experiences. So of course, we talked a lot about this today, how our experiences affect us and stuff. But is there anything you think that we've not mentioned that might be useful to people listening, do you think, around this?
Well, number one is being brave enough, you know, to look into yourself. Well, that's a big thing. I often say to people when they come in this is the bravest thing you'll ever do, because people are afraid to look at themselves and maybe find something they don't like about themselves. And it can be quite hurtful, but the rewards can be great after. So you can go and find somebody to talk to, basically. Talk about things. Because most of us are coaches in some way anyway in life. We all talk to our friends, you know, and if we've got a problem, we know the person we're going to go and talk to if we want a certain solution for something. But if you want to take the real step, then find somebody you can coach and also uses different techniques, tools, and therapies. You know, most people out there do these days. I think they found now that one thing isn't enough to help people to get past this. There's always something they can bring in with it. So I would just say, you know, if you're ready to make your life that bit better, you just find yourself somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you can relate to, and that understands, and you know they're understanding where you're coming from, and they're willing to listen. It's so important that they're not bringing their map of their world into your world. You know, that's what I say about coming from nothing, because it's very often, I find myself fortunate that I've gone through a lot of my stuff and dealt with it, because otherwise, when I work with somebody, if they've got a similar problem that I had, I would probably be putting my stamp on it rather than allowing them to find their solution, if that makes sense. So it is, you know, there are lots of people out there working in this sort of game, but you've got to find who's right for you, you know, and just take that step. Take the step. Even if you have 2 sessions, 3 sessions with somebody, it'll start you on a journey in a new direction. And most of us, you know, I still continue to look for things myself. 20 odd years, I'm still looking for things because I know it'll help me to grow. It'll improve my life, my well-being, the things I'm getting from life. And that's what we're all here for. You know, it's just the trappings that we've fallen into through nobody's fault. You know, it happens, and what we make it mean. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really important for the audience to understand that there are different ways that you can look at past experiences and how they infect you in this present moment. And sometimes some of the work, it depends on how you feel. Some of the work may, involve you going backwards and remembering things. And that's not for everybody. But then other people can process it right now in this moment through body sensation. So if you're looking at Pete Levine's somatic experiencing work, you can process the energy out in the residual memory. Feeling can be processed now and you can clear it, but other times you can go back and remember moments, and maybe that could be quite enlightening too. So it just depends on how you want to approach it, and it takes a lot. Just research some stuff. It doesn't always have to be, oh God, I've got to sit there and really, really start thinking about a terrible time that I had. It can be like, what's going on in your body right now, and how can we look to address that? Because it's obviously old energy, so it's kind of, isn't it? It's kind of looking out there for different modalities and what involves in it, really.
I work with some people, and we've done some regression work, if you want to call it that, right? People think it's quite spooky, but actually it's just bringing the memory forward. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do it because they feel worse. So you've got to learn that really quickly. Your client, are they somebody who wants to go back and resolve it completely, or are they somebody who wants to move forward? And we're looking at them resolving it, as you say, through the energy that they're experiencing right now. So yeah, there are many different ways, but it's something like just keep an open mind and go and explore something for yourself, because whatever you do will improve your life as long as it's the right thing for you.
Definitely. It's just having that intention to want to explore, maybe learn. And I've always been a big advocate. It was my story, and which is why I have the YouTube channel I have, which has been obviously created off of Manco, which is start to just learn stuff. That's the power of YouTube. You can go and learn stuff about what it is to be human, and it gives you a bit more insight, and it's a good gateway in, I think, to be a bit more sort of prepared to look for help. Is just watch a few of the videos that we have on there. Like, we've got a whole series of childhood common adaptations, so people who've had childhood trauma, it can manifest in personality traits, and there's 8 different ways it can manifest itself, and they're all very short videos. So it's an opportunity for you to reflect on some of those. Go, oh, wow, maybe I am quite codependent. Maybe I should look into that. So just get out there and start doing a little bit of reading gently and safely, and it can open up some doors. And that's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here today, Steve. You and me just talking about these things, hopefully opening some doors. And I try and do it in a way that isn't triggering. So just trying to do it in the safest way possible. So yeah, thanks so much for that. So what's the future look like for you, my friend? Let's pretend COVID doesn't exist, I guess. But what does next year, what's the plan? Have you got anything in the pipeline with your client work?
I've got a few projects, yeah. I've got some meetings lined up on Zoom with different organizations, actually. So things, I suppose the past years of working away and believing in things and, continuing to do what I do is paying off. It takes time, but more and more people now are looking for that type of help, or the help I can give and the support. And yes, we can take COVID out of it, but I think that's going to bring a lot more work as well, because people are going to struggle in different ways, and don't be stuck. That's all I say to people. Don't be stuck. If I can't help, we've created a kit company, not-for-profit company called Remember to Care, which we are relaunching because we launched it before COVID, and so obviously COVID has had a big effect. We are relaunching, but what we've got is multiple associates. So in any area of life, if I'm not the answer, we can guide you to what is, from chiropractors, nutritionists, personal trainers, massage therapists, Reiki practitioners, you name it. Over the years, we've just got involved with so many different people who've become experts in their fields. So, like I said, if one person isn't the answer for you, we can see that, then we can guide that person to the right place. So that's quite exciting, actually. That's going to be happening from March on. And that's what we're going to do from March, is march on. We're all going to march on from this and start to see that light and head towards better life. So, yeah, that's what it is. Online work, obviously that's improved. Something I didn't do before, but found it works so well that I'm able to contact and be in touch with people around the world now through the likes of Zoom and Skype, and and it's working really well.
Yeah, thank you. It's been such a good opportunity to be adaptable to all of these kind of things. And it's opened up a lot of doors, I think, things we wouldn't have thought about before. So again, more gratitude for the year that's gone by. If we can find it, that's certainly one of them. I was always like, I'm never ever going to do an interview on Zoom. You know me, travel the country, interview people in person. It's not sustainable whatsoever to do that. I can't travel to America and do like a couple of interviews and come back. So we have to be adaptable and find the real power in other modalities that we can use. So that's amazing. So here we go. It's our finale question, my friend. Everybody gets the same question. I slightly reworded it because it makes more sense now. But in regards to self-awareness and present moment awareness, what would be your message to the audience? So this is your parting message.
Well, I think you've got to find what works for you. Yeah, you've got to find a practice, a daily practice, and it hasn't got to be complicated. If you want to get into the bigger stuff, of sitting and meditating a few times a day, and you can do it, and brilliant, do it. But just find something that works for you, and start to become more aware of how you're thinking about things and your perspective of things, and allow yourself the flexibility and create more choices for you and your life, because your unconscious mind is always working for you. It's always helping you to survive in whatever areas of your life you're dealing with, and it's your best friend. So start to trust it a little bit more and understand it better, and feed the right things in so you get the right things out. And that goes with nutrition, and the way you talk to yourself is so important. Self-talk, it creates what you want to feed through the system, so the consciousness becomes more aware, and there's a harmony of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and that's also working with the body. And if you can start to get that harmony going and move it through your life, you can have an extraordinary life. And like I always say to people, is the most important thing we're all looking at is health. You can have all the money, all the success, you can be the most popular person, but if your health isn't right, and I think a lot of it comes through the 4 things we spoke about: sleep well, eat well, exercise, and get your mindset right. And just find what works for you. All right? Don't go down. If you don't enjoy it, it's not working. Yeah, it's like running. If you want to run the streets and you love it and you love the rain on your face, then do it. But if you don't, it's not going to be sustainable. If just getting up and walking up and down your stairs 20 times is something you can do, and you find it easier, then do that. You're moving your body. And that goes for each aspect of what you're trying to keep healthy, or you're looking to keep healthy. Don't try and do it. But even the mind exercises, find what works. Find what you enjoy.
Certainly. Thanks so much. And I think it's so important to have that positive, loving and compassionate interaction as you start to go on this journey of self-awareness and daily practices. It's just to remain loving and compassionate to yourself, because not everything's going to stick, and then you're able to be adaptable and change things up. And things will change as you grow. You'll be able to come back to some of these things. But I think it's so important to stay compassionate, because it's so easy to become judgmental of yourself when it comes to engaging in these kind of practices. I think that's a really, really important message, because that was certainly for me the biggest trip up, was seeing this high level of judgment around it. Like, you need to sit here and do your 10-minute meditation. Even if it's uncomfortable, you carry on, rather than being compassionate and saying, actually, this is kind of a bit overwhelming right now. So I think it's really important for me to maybe just find something different for today. Maybe go for a walk, maybe listen to some music, or maybe, revert to a distraction tool just for today. That feels appropriate to me. And it's that's how you start to really learn about yourself, don't you? And what's right and what's wrong. And in itself, that's a daily practice by doing that. So, within daily practice, there's daily practice. So, either way, it goes through that.
One last note. Like, look back at what you enjoy doing, because when life changes, we stop doing the things that we enjoyed for whatever reason. It might be that our partner doesn't like what we do or something. Yeah. But then that creates resentment. So if you are happy, then things will work better. So if you used to fish and then you stop for some reason, but you love doing it, and go back and do it again. Buy yourself a fishing rod. If it's darts, if it's cards, whatever you enjoy, make it a daily practice. But, if people look back and think, I stopped doing that and I got out of the habit of it, but I used to love doing it, then just go back and do it again. That's it. Just find what works for you.
Yeah, it's kind of that. It's kind of resonating, isn't it? It needs to resonate on some level. I could tell you to, write in your gratitude journal and put it by the side of your bed and do that every night. But if that isn't a resonating thing, and it doesn't fit in with your bedtime routine, then it's a bit silly to try and engage in that format. So it's the good thing about that. If you go out there and Google these things, there is going to be hundreds of different cool ideas people come up with for daily practices. But I find living my life through a awareness lens is the best practice I've got right now. It's the most effective one, is to live a more mindful way of life from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, is to become aware and listen at all times. That for me is a day-long practice, which will start to retrain and reprogram the way I am in the world. So, when you look at it that way, that in itself is one. So I can get so hung up on these 10-minute things I'm supposed to be doing. But actually, I'm living my life pretty mindfully, start to finish. I mean, that's a whole other level, right? That's way more than these 10-minute things I'm trying to go for. So that's why I created the Awareness 5. I need to talk to you about this, Steve, off recording, but the Awareness 5 are the 5 things that I do day to day to keep me aware. And I push that out into the world, to the audience, because that's what I do personally. That was my way to see, actually, mine's a day-long thing rather than individual practice. And that liberated me from all forms of being structured in. I realized, even though I seem a super structured person, actually it's one of the things that's kept me stuck. And actually being more free and loose has been really transformative for me. But I wouldn't have known that, unless I approached some daily practices to tell me that. So either way, you're going to get something out of it. That's the hope, right?
Just do your daily practices and what works for you. I let my saxophone slip, funny enough. And we were on a call. I think it was John Ely, quite some time back. And I talked about my saxophone. He said, "Oh, I used to play sax. I used to love it." He said, "You've just sparked me now to start doing it again." And that's the sort of thing, we get caught up in things in life, and we know we've enjoyed doing it, but I haven't got the time anymore. No, find the time. Do what you enjoy. Do what you love. Find the time to do it, because time is what we've got, really, isn't it? It's us that we make a story up, but we haven't got time to do something. What's the meditation thing is, if you haven't got time to do it for half an hour, then do it for an hour. But it's about doing what works and enjoys. I've got back to my sax, actually, and I'm loving it. So I make that time now. Otherwise, I just get caught up in everything else. But I can get lost in that for a little while. It's my time.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you. It's such a wonderful message, actually, to go to do things that set your soul on fire. I keep using that sentence. I don't know why I keep using that line, but it's what matters to me. And like a big part of, I'm a big lover of the water and being by the beach, which is exactly why I've got this thing behind me for audiences that watch the clips on Instagram. I deliberately have this behind me because when I'm having these conversations, this makes me feel very, very just really lovely inside, having this beach scene behind me, and I'm hoping it helps my guests too feel grounded and rooted too. So it's a place I love, and I make sure I have it in my life, even if it's artificial. So it's something that I love, and I want more of it in my life. But obviously, traveling is a little bit trickier with COVID right now. But it'll come back. It'll come back. But I just want to thank you so much for joining me. I know we've had, like I said, we've talked so many times on shows. I feel like we've uncovered even more information today by opening up in a different sort of arena of subjects. So I just want to thank you. And what is the best way that people can find you online and get in touch?
My website's the best, lovelifeloveyou.co.uk. Lots of good information, some links to other things as well, like the Nightingale Dementia Consultants. For anybody who's in that area or have got a loved one who's living with dementia, lots of good information, lots of different people they can talk to for help in different ways. So yeah, lots of information on my website and links to others as well.
Amazing. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes, and also for anybody that's listening, if you head over to our YouTube channel right now, you can check out some visualizations, relaxation stuff that me and Steve have worked together on. I've created the videos, he's created the content and done all the narration. They're very beautiful, and they get listened to every single week by our audience. So go and check that out. There's some really, really awesome stuff there, based in the beach and in the woodlands. And we had a lot of fun with that, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, that was great. Really enjoyed it. We'll do some more one day.
Definitely. Well, I've been trying to pull myself away from making videos, but I'm finding my heart is like really, really wants to do more. So I will do more in the future when the time is right.
When the time's right.
Because people obviously really enjoy it, and I want to thank everybody that does listen to them. But yeah, go and check those out, guys. They're amazing. So thank you very much, Steve. I will definitely get you involved in some of our panel shows coming up. By the time this episode comes out, people would have seen one of the panel shows already. I hope you enjoyed it, and Steve will I'm sure, be involved in one of those with 2 other guests.
I look forward to it. Yeah.
It'll be absolutely amazing. All right, my friend, take care. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I've got many more shows coming up. I've got some amazing guests I'm recording with in January. If you're listening very presently at the moment, I just want to thank everybody that's reaching out, all the new followers. We hit 2,000 followers on Instagram the other day. That was very special for me. And the way you're all interacting has been very special. So as always, gratitude all the way for the community. It's very special time to sharing this space with you all. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope it has been of value. We have new shows every Sunday and Wednesday, including our panel shows every 4 weeks. If you have enjoyed the podcast so far, I would be so grateful if you could leave a rating and a review on whichever platform you listen on. If you could also follow us on these platforms, then that would really help more people find this podcast. Your support means the world to me. We also have wellness videos over on our YouTube channel. There are also longer form videos, meditations, and visualizations. If you're intrigued to discover more about becoming more self-aware and how you can live a life with more resilience, self-compassion, and joy, then check out Living Heart Wisdom with Carla Jo Garrity. If you're in need of support, please do check out the helplines and website resources listed on the show notes of this episode. For more on us generally and what we're doing, visit www.theawareness-space.com. Thank you for being with us, and I will be back soon. It is time to experience the awareness space within.